Hey, everybody, it's Sam Amico of hoopswire.com. Welcome to the 330ToGO NBA Cavaliers show. I don't know if that's the official name, but we just named it. Today, I'm very excited for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, finally, the Cavs are back in action. It's been, a week now, a little more than a week since they played. They're at home against the Orlando Magic, and still rolling 18-2, just like they were last Thursday in their last 20 games heading into the break. And I'm super excited tonight. I don't know why I'm feeling extra vibrant, but maybe it's because Chase Smith from the Cavs on the Break podcast is joining me today. And I asked Chase, who's my first person I went to see if he would join me. Chase, welcome. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great, Sam. Thank you for the invite. This it's weird to not be running point on the show. Like, I don't know what I'll add, but I'll do my best, man. I'll do my best.
We're like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland now. Sometimes you're usually the point guard, you're Garland. I'd like to think of myself as Donovan Mitchell of the show.
Yeah.
Of the podcast anyway. And now I've moved over back over to shooting guard or to point guard while you're shooting guard. I really don't know what I'm saying. But anyway,
no, it's good. It's good. You be the Mark Price, and I'll be, I don't even know,
Ron Harper before he got traded.
Yeah, I don't want to be the Okoro in the corner not making threes. So I'll do my best. I'm wearing my Dion Waiters jersey, so maybe I could just heat check every chance I get.
One of my all-time favorites was Dion Waiters, and still this day, just was a fantastic interview. Always polite.
That's good to know. This was a thrift store.
Had that Philly edge about him. And I always liked that about him.
Syracuse baller. I had to, this was a thrift store rescue. So I was like, oh no, that deserves a better home than wherever it's going to go. So
you found the best spot for it without question.
Yeah, man.
So anyway, welcome. Chase, tell us a little about, what you do. You're the host of the Cavs on the Break podcast, father of 3 young children.
Yes.
Which Chasen. How old's Chasen now?
Chasen is 7 months old. So we have an 8-year-old daughter who's in 3rd grade, a 3.5-year-old son, and his name's Monty, and Chasen, who's 7.
Monty,
months.
who I say is he's just a 3-year-old version of you. That's all he is. You have a mini me. I've met Monty once at breakfast, and it was
that was great.
Your whole family, they're all a great delight to be around. So
thank you, Sam. Launched. So Cavs on the Break is part of Press Play Podcast, which is a network I launched in 2018, and we cover pretty much the major Cleveland sports. We covered the Browns, Orange Browns podcast, Cavs on the Break, and then Guardians of the Land, and a handful of other sports podcasts. We have some entertainment podcast, Marvel, DC. We have a book club. We cover movies, TV. And I don't know, can I make some breaking news? Can I drop a nugget?
Please. This is where we have the breaking news right here.
All right. I'm probably breaching all sorts of like market strategy and stuff. We are launching.
That's not uncommon for you. So go ahead.
We are launching a new show here in just a few short weeks. We're going to hopefully announce it next week. But if you're watching this now, you'll get to hear it. This show is called Exit Polls, and it's a political show. And anytime there is a major political announcement or some type of debate or a convention, this podcast is going to release an episode. We are in the final talks with the host now. I cannot say the host, but this host is a New York Times bestseller. He's a political correspondent on all the major news outlets, and so we are very excited about the prospect of what this could be. But we've never had, this is a limited series show. We've never had a show like this or a show in politics, and so we're curious to see what happens. Exit polls.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
We're really excited.
Limited series, so sort of like the thing that gets you, you can't wait for the next episode, like you're watching on Netflix type of deal.
Yeah. So our plan is to launch it in March, and for the show to wrap up at the inauguration.
Wow, that's cool. Good for you,
Yeah.
man.
So
Good for you.
we're
It's good to
excited.
see that you have something better to offer than just Amico, which is hard to do. I mean,
yeah. Well, we're trying to think through like promoting it now, and marketing, because if anything, we saw a lot of sports fans don't like to have their sports mixed with politics, and so
I know
we want to be really mindful of where we communicate this and how we communicate this. But we're really excited. Exit polls. We're really, really excited. We believe in the show and really excited about this host. So, but yeah, enough about us.
That's great,
yeah.
brother. No, I think that's neat. I think that's cool that you have something like that coming along. So
yeah, man.
And then you also run. There's also Guardians, and Browns.
Yep.
And don't you?
We have a college basketball podcast. We have, which is called the Full 40. We have a ball card show podcast all about trading cards and collectibles.
Oh, cool.
We have Sable Brothers in the Baseline, Ray Guy and Rhoda, kind of to round out our sports vertical. Yeah, man,
that's great.
A lot of people worked really hard on kind of what press play is, and we're rolling, man. We're here. We are 2024, still doing our thing. So hopefully, we've had a really good, strong start to the year. So we're excited about what the spring and summer's going to hold for us.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to be a part of it. I think I've been a part of it now for what year are we in together?
Almost 5. You were one of the first people. Shouts to Jeremy and Akron, JP, who is, probably recorded more airtime, like just because of the amount of shows I was a part of. He's probably had the second. You're up there with probably number 3. I don't know who's had more hours on the network, you or Jay, but
not very many people want to hang out with me for 5 years. So I always respect you for that. So
no, man, no, you're great. I love maybe second to this show. I think we have some of the best Cavs content.
Right. Definitely second to this show. We've been
second to 330 to go, man.
That's why I had you on, because I'm like, who would be second to my 330 to go show? Yeah. Clearly Chase Smith from the podcast that I'm on.
Keep your friends close.
Worked out very well.
Your friends close and your enemies as co-host. That's what I always say.
Yeah. Chase, you want to, as anybody who follows Facebook knows, or follows me on Facebook, and I don't feel bad about announcing today's my birthday, because last week Mark Price announced it was his birthday, and I thought, well, if Mark Price is going to announce his birthday, then I certainly can, right?
No, I saw that. I was saving it for the perfect time.
Do you like that? Do you like that?
I do, yeah.
Amico. It's very cool.
There it is, man. I was saving it for the perfect time. I didn't say anything in our text thread just because that's a big deal. And happy birthday, Sammy.
Thank you. Man. I can tell you that I still have the mind of like a 30-year-old, the humor of a 12-year-old. Yep. Unfortunately, I have the body of someone who was killed in the Great Depression. So,
stop it.
Other than that, everything's great. So,
yeah,
thanks. And the whole reason I brought that up was because,
it's your show, so you can do whatever you want.
Right. I could do whatever I want. They'll never throw me off, because I don't know why they wouldn't. They probably will now. The show is probably going to go dead right now. But anyway, the whole reason I brought it up was because I wanted to say thank you to everybody on Facebook who was wishing me a happy birthday. And you know how that can be when you get those on Facebook. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and it's like, gosh, I got it. How do I say thanks best? I figured doing it here would cover me, right? Yeah. Because everybody on my Facebook page either watches the show or doesn't get a thank you, right? That's kind of the way it works. So anyway, we are here. Actually, you might not know this by now. We're 10 minutes in. We're here to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, and
baby,
the fact that they, like I said earlier, have won 18 of 20. They're heading in to the second, well, I don't want to say the second half, but the post All-Star break portion of the season. This is when everybody makes their playoff push, when everybody gets, excited about the possibilities, particularly with this team. Chase, I've enjoyed watching this team probably as much as the team that won the championship in 2015-16. Obviously, different dynamic, but I've enjoyed watching them play because I think this is a team that's, number one, playing, people say the right way. What does that mean? That means they're sharing the basketball, they're cutting and everybody's playing unselfish and nobody's forcing anything on offense. Sometimes in the NBA, if you watch the NBA, you'll see a guy, it's like, okay, it's my turn to shoot, and that's a natural thing to do. I don't fault guys for that, but on this team, I am not seeing that. And obviously you have teamwork, and then you throw in the fact that they've got a true blue superstar in Donovan Mitchell. Team is defending. They like their coach. There's a lot to like about them. So, that said, Chase, right now the Cavs are number 2 in the Eastern Conference. That means they would play the number 7 seed in the Eastern Conference if the playoffs started today. So I was wondering who, Chase, you would like to see them play in the first round if everything's the same as it is today in 2 months when the playoffs start.
Yeah, in the first round, I think the Bulls would be an intriguing, you'd probably want to play the Bulls in the first round. I think they're the 9th seed right now. The Hawks, I think, would be a favorable matchup. They're the 10th seed. Yeah. Depending on
one.
I had to pick one.
4. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the Bulls. Trae Young scares me a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, and I get what you're saying. Any of those teams would be. Who I would kind of like to see them play that I think that they could match up with in the first round, that I think is a possible first round matchup, would be the team. A lot of people aren't going to see this till later, but the team that they're playing here in 45 minutes, the Orlando Magic, and the reason I say that is because Orlando is a young team that it's kind of like the Cavs were last year. They get in the playoffs, they'll have a bunch of playoff rookies. But out of all the teams, I'm just saying Orlando's also got size, and they're, they can be a little bit dangerous. But a
couple players in the Magic just a little intimidating, just because they haven't fully reached their NBA potential.
Yeah.
I think Banchero has the ceiling of a best player on the court. Sam, anytime we talk, it's like, hey, which team has the best player on the court? A lot of times it's what it comes down to in basketball. And I think Banchero has the size. He has the, I think I've seen this season, the ability to oh man, in a couple years, this, he might be part of that next wave of, this could be his conference, truly that kind of ceiling. And I don't want to be the first recipient of his coming out party.
At some point, right. And at some point, he's going to have one of those, I suspect, plus Franz Wagner. I'm sorry, it's Wagner.
Jalen Suggs is a winner. There's some players there that I don't know. The Bulls, I think, are the biggest mess. If they somehow get
the biggest losers,
that would be great. Maybe the Hawks for the sweet redemption of getting knocked out of the play-in game a couple years ago, just to get over that. All right, we put that, if there even is a skeleton or a demon there, that would be cool. Trae Young, I think, any night can flash and win a game. Kind of like what Garland did in New York last playoff, right? He had that one game where he just oh, this is the Darius Garland game.
Yeah.
I think any of those teams, we talked about this, Sam, at our live show. I don't want to play the Pacers. I would rather play the Heat than the Pacers. I do not want to play the Pacers in the playoffs.
They do not match up well. The Cavs do not match up well with the Pacers. The Pacers really, for lack of a better term, really, really push the pace. And Halliburton.
Well, they're physical. They're strong. Carlisle somehow is underrated, as people forget he's the coach there. I think you have a top 7 coach. You have a top the top point guard. You have Siakam, who's a champion, Mathurin, who I'm going to buy everyone's Mathurin. I don't know. I think he's a good player. I just think they have a lot of good pieces that I don't want to play.
Did you say Siakam?
Yeah, champion. Yeah, NBA champion.
Yeah. He's a great defender.
Yeah. Miami, I think they're just a little bit older. I suppose still one of the best in the biz. Jimmy Buckets is going to do Jimmy Bucket stuff, but I think last year might have been that I don't want to count them out because that's when they play their best, it seems. But I don't
foresee them going back to the finals. No. And they could very well. I mean, they lost Max Strus, who the Cavs obviously have now, the Heat, and then Gabe Vincent played a big role for them last season, and he's with the Lakers, hasn't played all year because he's been hurt. But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying about the Pacers. Obviously, Rick Carlisle, you're very right. I even forget that he's a coach there, and he's an outstanding coach and has really lifted them kind of to another level with the rise of Halliburton. And Miles Turner, every year at the summer and the trade deadline, we hear how he's going to get traded, and then it never has happened. And he's just one of those players that everybody wants.
Yep. You mentioned Max Strus. For some reason, he doesn't get a lot of. He's not a flashy player, and there are other better players on our team than Strus, but he has the second best plus minus on the team right now, Sam. He's playing some of his best ball in the last 5 years in the league. And so he's doing exactly what the Cavs need him to do. And I think he's been a huge addition and one of the biggest reasons why, even though the style of our offense has changed, or who's been injured or who we have to play, he has been the constant of the Cavs this first half of the season, whether it's his stability, whether it's just his calm demeanor or his feistiness, right? He's like, I think the top 5 league in techs.
His edge, right?
He can catch fire. I mean, I think he struggled a little bit the first half of the season from the field, but he is usually on one of the tougher players on defense. And I think he's just helps fill a huge need that the Cavs had the past couple years.
Yeah, and you're right on, because remember how everybody last year at the end of the playoffs said, well, they got to be more physical, which they clearly needed to be against the Knicks in the playoffs. Everybody just assumes, well, you got to add, more bigs, which you don't. You have to add more guys who are scrappy, and they did that with Strus. They did that certainly with Niang. That's the one thing that he's always brought was his scrappiness and annoyances. They did that with Tristan Thompson when he returns from a suspension. There's another guy. Those are just scrappy guys. And Strus not only is scrappy, but he obviously is a threat from the perimeter. And that's I think those additions, people complain, Cavs fans in my mentions complain about Strus and especially Niang and Wade. But those guys are what they always were. They're the same players they've always been. It's not that they're worse or that there weren't, other options. It's just these guys fill a need, and that's not to score, because the Cavaliers have guys who can score, right? I mean, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, throw those guys out there. That's a big 3. Allen now is averaging a double-double. So, now you have these other guys who can score, along with LeVert, who's pretty much that's what he does. That's a specialty, is scoring basketball. And then Okoro's coming around. I think Okoro's having a career year at both ends, and which I know is music to your ears.
True. I'm president of the Okoro fan club. But, I think there's a lot to be said about players knowing their role in a team, Sam. And you wrote on HoopsWire, Greg Popovich told you that they draft players who are over themselves. Yeah. And there is a clear kind of thread for the players that they've brought in, Kobe Altman, Mike Gansey, Bickerstaff. And I think it starts honestly with them. They seem like they're over themselves, at least in their demeanor, how they carry themselves, how they respect other players, how they, go about their business. And they bring about these players who they know their role. And so much of the NBA, so much of even, you go to other sports, it's all these players are the best at what they do in the world. It's it's like fit. How
Yeah.
well do players, where they get drafted, where they sign, where they get traded, how well do they fit? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Killian Hayes, was the top prospect and
Overdrafted ahead of Tyrese Halliburton.
Just cut
in Indiana. Yeah.
And so
just waived. Yeah.
And who knows, maybe a different situation. I'm sure he's going to get picked up.
Yeah, right. And then you look at somebody like Craig Porter Jr.
Yep.
You think about the differences in between those two. Killian Hayes, for people who don't know, was I think the number 7 overall pick in the draft once, went to the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just never really developed there, never really become anything. And I believe he was traded. Was he traded and then waived, or just waived by the Pistons?
Just waived. No one would trade him because they knew they were just going to cut him.
Right. And then you look at a guy like Craig Porter Jr. from the Cavs,
Mm-hmm.
who's a rookie, who was not drafted, who, he's not going to play every night, but the times he does play, he has shown he belongs in this league and can run a team at some point.
He can give you 7 to 12 minutes, or if someone goes down in the injury or foul trouble. But to that fit, Strus, man, he played with Bam, but what about a Jarrett and an Evan Mobley, right? You think about like George Yang, like the makeup of our team, I think really benefits a lot of different play styles. And especially when you have a cohesive front office who goes after like what they want and they find that, it's a reason why the style of play we have is sustainable. It's a reason why, it doesn't seem to matter who's injured or who's down or who's out. Like we're playing consistent basketball, efficient basketball, 2 offense, 2 defense in the NBA. Yeah. It belongs to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so I think a lot to be excited about heading into the second half.
Yeah, they're almost playing playoff style basketball during the regular season. They've been doing that. This is, as you know, Chase, we're fans of Cleveland sports, and this is where we always start to get a little anxious, a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm a fan of a couple Cleveland sports. But
right. That still counts. That counts if you're a fan of more than one Cleveland sports team. But you always start to get a little nervous because you think, okay, things are going really well, right? You always get a little bit concerned. It's somewhere like, I guess, Los Angeles, Boston, New England, or I guess Boston's New England, or New York, or those places. They probably don't have those concerns, but Cleveland fans are so used to seeing things not go great. But what I will say about this team is that they have overcome a lot already with injuries to Darius Garland out with a broken jaw, and Evan Mobley out with after minor knee surgery. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Chase, about, their mindset is win and lose as a team. It's nice that we have this superstar who can carry us if need be in Mitchell. Right. And the nice thing is, I really think that they have another guy who can do that in Darius Garland, but he just hasn't done it because he hasn't needed to, like he did last year in the playoffs. Yeah. But I think that's the nice thing about this team is they have more than one guy capable of scoring, one of those 40, 45-point nights when they need it.
Yeah, I think there'll be a time when Garland needs to realize, oh, I'm the one tonight, they're throwing 2-3 guys at Mitchell, right? Like the Knicks did. Yeah. I think that was more like just giving what the teams gave him. And it is encouraging to see one of your top players be able to feel the rhythm of a game and understand, well, all right, here I go. And then to be able to produce with that too. It'll be interesting to see over the next 12 months, just the future of Darius Garland and how he evolves as a player and the steps he takes and demeanor. And I think that's going to tell a lot about the future of the team. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching how this second half goes and what that looks like for this team for sure with Darius Garland.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact with the Cavs, regardless of what happens and how it plays out, we'll have a ton to talk about during the off season.
After the parade, after the podcast. Yeah.
After the championship run, yes.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, because you're talking about the Donovan Mitchell extension, which is something that's going to be. I've downplayed it, as you know, Chase, the whole season. I've been like, look, you don't need to worry about that. It's not time to worry about it. Come August or so, we're going to start. If he hasn't signed an extension by then, I'm going to start getting a little bit concerned for the Cavs. Definitely if he hasn't signed one by, when training camp opens the first week of October, then I think, okay, why hasn't he signed one yet? Because they're going to offer him the max, so why wouldn't he? So, I mean, again, that's
Cavs will be able to offer more, right? They'll be able to offer more than other teams.
They can offer, you can always re-sign your own guy for more money than anyone else when they get to that point. So they can offer him another year, whereas other teams he could only go there for 4 years. So my thinking is that if they sign Mitchell, maybe they'll need to trade Garland. I don't know that that's the case. We have to let this season play out and see what the case is before
That is music to my podcasting ears, Sam. That just is.
I'm sure I'll repeat it on the podcast and everywhere else that'll have me.
Or just the trades, the the returns. We gave up a lot for Mitchell. And so that just sounds like content to me. So that sounds great, man. Let's do it.
Right. Yeah. And you can't. That's the one thing I consider is when you traded for Donovan Mitchell, you traded to win now, right? Because you gave up a lot of your future. Gave up Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen.
More so the draft picks.
3 first rounders, was it?
Yeah, and that's what I kept saying. It's like that shortened that like experimental window. Like you win now, like that, like the grace that Bickerstaff has, the grace that Altman has, and like what this team does. Like you've really kind of put yourself under the microscope now with this trade, and so
right.
Yeah.
What I was going to say before we kind of wrap this up, we've already been on about 30 minutes, and that doesn't include commercial breaks like most shows have. Fortunately,
Sam, I could talk to you for hours. It feels like 3 minutes. This feels like 3 minutes. I could talk. I could talk to you anytime.
I know. You know what? This is episode 2 for me, and last time I needed a drink, I think I was sweating. It's like I've been doing this for 100 years again. Because I obviously did the show on Fox Sports Ohio, now Bally Sports. Did that with Phelps for the whole LeBron era. And then, LeBron left and they were like, yeah, goodbye. We don't need you anymore. But, which I totally got. But, so I'm much more comfortable. And I think just having a familiar voice here, not to mention the fact that I don't have to come up with everything on my own. That helps. But hey, I wanted to say hello to David Burns, who said he joined from Cedar Hill, Texas, which is really cool. Yeah. And quick comment from him said, I'm very impressed by the Timberwolves being in the first place in the West, which, I mean, you talk about great stories in the NBA this year. And remember, Chase, I tweeted that out, which was you don't have to be New York or Los Angeles or Miami or one of those other Boston. Some of the best basketball in the NBA this year is taking places in Cleveland,
Oklahoma City, Minnesota,
Oklahoma City. Still Sacramento, still got a good team there. Yes, in Los Angeles, but guess what? It's the other Los Angeles
Clippers.
team.
One of the concerns that I have with the Timberwolves is just like culture and attitude, right?
Yeah.
Like how I think winning. Terrell Owens, I think, says winning fixes everything, right? I think that was a T.O. quote. And so they're winning, they're doing great. Like they're the 1 seed. I think Ant has taken over that team as he should. But what happens when they go through a skid like the Cavs did at the start of the season?
Yeah.
Right. Like what happens when they go through
experience that the wheels can come off of a younger team. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Chase. The one thing I will say is I do like Mike Conley there. I think he's kind of been the calming presence that those young, because you think about before he got there, they were kind of all over the place. You didn't know what to expect from him. And the minute he got there last year in that D'Angelo Russell trade, that team just took on a new.
It did. I think you can get that from a lot of the other veterans, though. And I know Conley. I think Mike Conley is what he is. But I just think Rudy Gobert, Cat. You got some players that they're winning, so it's great.
But what happens when
they gave up a ton for Gobert too, almost like worse than the Spider trade? So they're playing great, but what happens when teams
when they're tested, when they're really tested and those things. Mm-hmm. This is where young teams tend to fold. We've seen it before after the All-Star break because it's where veteran teams step up. So, the Denver Nuggets, for instance, they're a veteran team where they've been good. They're like in third in the West. They haven't been great. This is when they turn it up. This is when the Los Angeles Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and help me out here, James Harden.
That one.
James Harden. Yeah. Russell Westbrook. They still got a little something left. So I mean, those teams turn it up at this time of year, and that's where the Cavs have to be aware of teams. Obviously, like Miami, New York's done kind of changed a lot with their own roster, adding. Help me out here, OG and Anunoby. Bogdanovich from Detroit, Alec Burks from Detroit. So
that was a deadline.
Julius Randle out for a while. So
and Mitchell Robinson's been out the entire year, which I think has impacted the way that they play because he's been huge. He was huge for them last year in the playoffs.
He and Hartenstein both. And Hartenstein,
offensive rebounds. I still have nightmares. So anyway,
Chase, we could just talk for days. This podcast could literally, the show could literally go for, I don't know, till like Sunday.
It really could. Hey, didn't we have fun at our live show, man? I want to give Whitey's a shout.
Whitey's live show, Whitey's Booze and Burgers Restaurant in Richfield, Saturday night. We were there with Michael Regai and Kenny Rhoda.
Yep.
Yeah, just had a great time. Chase bought my meal.
Great. Yeah, well, covered for you guys. It was delicious. It was great. Great conversation. It was, with the network, we do a lot of Zoom recordings. We never really get to meet in person a lot. And so it was nice to see you always, Sam, whether it's here at the Rock and especially Red Guy and Rhoda. Red was getting fired up, man. It was like, Reg had some hot takes, but it was good to see everyone. Shouts to Whitey's.
Yeah, shouts to Whitey. Shouts to Michael Regai for predicting that the Cavs are, I think he said finals.
Finals, to go to the finals,
and Chase is normally the hype man, and he did not go that far. So, who knows? Who knows? I'm not going to question Michael Regai. We'll see. This team has been playing as well as anybody in the Eastern Conference. So,
and their style translates too. And so I guess just kind of like take this full circle. The style of basketball they play translates to the playoffs. Like you said, they've been playing playoff basketball in regular season. And so that's, they tip off here in just about 30 minutes. And so season's half over. Let's do it. Let's let them know.
You know what I like to say? Let's 330 to go. That's my new catchphrase. It's not caught on yet, but I'll be trademarking it someday. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, buddy.
Man. Anytime.
And everybody who's either tuning in now or at some point, if you ever have any suggestions for the show other than a new host, please let me know. I'm sure Chase, you'll be back at some point. We're going to record another podcast here. I'm sure soon. But John Sable, who also co-hosts the podcast, the Cavs on the Break podcast, has agreed to come on here as well. And then, sometime maybe all three of us could do it, but we'd have to plan for a few hours.
I'd say for sure. I hope you're not closing the show because of me.
Like you hope what?
I hope you're not closing the show because of me. I just,
it's time for me to go as well, Chase. I'm closing. I just figured, what? People have had enough of Chase. It's 6:34. How much longer can they take? No, I think this is a good spot to wrap it up. Just because,
they haven't played a game. They haven't really played a game. If last week was your first show, you know what I mean? And so this is a good kind of primer for the second half of the season. Always good to talk, kind of whet our appetite for the game tonight, and hope for good health and good vibes, and That's 330 to go. Did I do it right?
Yeah,
Was that
there you go.
the
There you
catchphrase?
go.
Is that
You
it?
got to
Okay.
pay me $5 every time you say that.
No!
Anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Chase, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And we will be back. At least I will be back next Thursday, 6:00. You can watch it repeatedly. I'll put it on my YouTube, or I'm sorry, my Facebook page. It's also 330 to go is also on YouTube, so you can watch it there. And Chase, again, thanks so much, and we'll chat at everybody soon. All right.
Thank you,
All
Sam.
right.
Appreciate you,
Take
man.
care.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care, brother. All right, I am now checking out of the show for today. So thanks again so much. Really appreciated Chase hanging out with us for a while, and we will talk to you soon.